So, recording is live. Three, two, one. Welcome back, everyone, to the Expanded Minds podcast. Today, I have Jeff from Spiritual Escape Artist, or the Spiritual Escape Artist, if you will. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the people watching so they can get a general idea of who I'm talking to today?
All right. Yeah. So I'm Jeff. Jeff 1F. I'm just a regular guy. I've lived kind of an amazing life as far as spiritual awakening is concerned. Um, at an early age, I was practicing self-inquiry before I really knew what it was. I just always was wondering, where are my thoughts coming from? What is this thing I'm experiencing? And that was my passion at even a very early age. And I didn't even know what that was yet. Um, to about 2005, when I was about 20 years old, I had a spontaneous immersion into oneness. Like the whole world just completely melted away, and all I saw was this brilliant light. And the best word that I could describe it with was love. It was just love, just pure love, and it just made everything make sense to me at that time. And but I had a long ways to go. I still had a life to live. Didn't know what I wanted to do or where to go, but that really set the trajectory. I knew I wanted to do something to show people this, to bring out the light in others, to help let go of the load, escape their mental prisons. And so I picked up a lot of stuff along the way. I was actually drawn into energy work, playing with energy. At a very early age as well, I was making energy balls all the time, just on my own in private. I felt like it was a real thing. And while at first it was kind of like a little fantasy of mine, it eventually became a reality as I kept doing it and doing it. And then I found classes, Reiki classes. I took a channeling class. I just kind of dove into that on more of the new age side, while more in my private life, I was doing non-dual work and lots of meditation, because I knew that this was real. This was this is part of me, and I wanted to take it seriously. And I found that the universe was like confirming it. It was validating my actions and what I believed deep down to be true. Um, I can say so many things have come into my life by serendipity, by following in the right path. My wonderful, beautiful wife, she's of now 11 years. She was my soulmate, my co-pilot. Like we connect on the deepest level and just understand each other. Totally telepathic. It's absolutely fantastic. But that's, again, it's like the universe just validating who I am by offering this beautiful soul to me. And we have kids. So I'm a father, and that's been absolutely wonderful. But I wasn't working in those jobs that were completely fulfilling. They were great along the way. I worked in the food industry a lot. I did sales, which involved a lot of communicating, getting to know people, reading people, a lot of movement, a lot of getting in the flow of things. And that also shaped my approach to expressing my spirituality to people. And just recently, within the last couple of years, 2.5 years, I finally quit my normal jobs and pursued a profession in teaching and offering aid to other people that are seeking it. That's how I created Spiritual Escape Artist. And with my background in Reiki and energy work and coaching, doing leadership training, mentoring, I have kind of brought all that together into what I have called Slipstreaming, a service I provide that uses channeling, that uses visualization and energy work, and also just conversation to help bring people into the present moment, help people find this present moment, find their power, and then reapproach their life from a place of clarity and calm, knowing what they want and how to get there and what are the next steps to take. And so, yeah, that's in a nutshell me.
Nice, nice. So, I mean, you talk about, there's a combination of practices that go into that term slipstreaming. At what point did it become clear that that's what it was, the term slipstreaming? And what exactly is that?
Right on. So actually that came out because, now let me ask you real quick. What do you know about channeling? What have you heard of this?
Well, I know that I would say very little, but from a basic understanding, I would say all you're doing is opening up your mind to a certain angel, you're calling, or whatever entity it is, you're invoking their name, and then you're letting them speak through you. You don't really think
Right.
about it, you just speak about whatever's coming through you. I mean, that's all I really know. Never really
So that right
happened.
there, what you said is probably the most common general idea of what channeling is, because of the New Age community and the way that it's presented. You'll see people like, and their eyes roll in the back of their head, and their voice will change, and they'll start, speaking as though they're from some distant galaxy or some distant time, and that they're here to convey wisdom. And while that's fine, and some people get a lot out of it. I know a lot of other people think it's nonsense, or it's like more of a fantasy, and that's all fine too. I've had a very personal experience with it that has evolved over time, and for me, when it started, was just by myself in deep meditation. I would bring energy work into it. So that was awakening to the idea that I can see energy, and anyone can do it, but it takes practice, just like anything else. It takes dedicated time to start opening up those inner abilities, opening up that third eye, or I like to call it the first eye, to open up those abilities and start seeing with the heart, seeing with your in that inner realm. There's just a great universe within you that can be seen, interacted with, and felt, and all of those senses blend together into that realm. So what I would do is I would not only meditate, but I would focus in on light, and I would see it as like a column of light, and just hold it and hold it and hold it. And I was just doing it naturally, not because I was taught that. I just felt like that was what I should be doing, because, well, honestly, it felt good. It felt amazing to just hold it there. And after a while, my body would start like vibrating, and I would start shaking, and my hands would assume mudras like on their own. I wouldn't even know what I was doing, and my hands would be like in very locked positions, and they would be adjusting and moving on their own. And my eyes would be rolling in the back of my head, like they were trying to find like this singular point, like trying to find my crown chakra and create this connection, all on its own, all totally involuntary, spontaneous. And back in the early days of YouTube, I was kind of alone in this. I was very isolated in this experience. I had good friends and everything that would talk to me and talk me through a lot of stuff, but I didn't really. I looked for guides and teachers and stuff like that, but they just weren't around. Not in the small town I lived in, little town in Idaho. But so YouTube came online at that time, and I found a guy online that I'm sure your listeners and stuff have heard of, called Bashar. It's really big on TikTok nowadays, channeled by a guy named Daryl Anka. And while the information was really cool and interesting, and I liked that because it made sense to me. What I saw him going through, and the vibrating, the shaking that was going on while he was channeling, I was like, I get that. I see what I feel what he's going through. And I didn't even like really show that to people I showed it to my wife. My wife was cool with it because we were so closely connected, but I didn't actually come out publicly with that, even to my own family, until probably 2018 or 19. Did I actually feel safe and confident enough to be like, hey, I can do this thing. And I started doing it with my dad. And my dad was a big fan of this channeled material. This really brought channeling to the limelight. It was called the Seth material. Came out in the 60s and 70s. A channeled entity named Seth came through Jane Roberts, and it was all transcribed by her husband, Robert Butts, and they literally wrote books, book after book after book, like literally like dictated, like title, start paragraph, capital letter, boom, like, and it was channeled like that, like word after word after word, chapter after chapter, in order, exactly as the entity wanted the book to look like. And absolutely fascinating that you could just go into trance and literally just pour out an entire book. But that's what they did. And what I was beginning to realize as I grew up was all that information is basically the same. It's all kind of like pointing in the same direction. And there's a lot more than that. You might have heard of Abraham Hicks and Esther Hicks. That's all about the
Yeah.
law of attraction. Putting out the energy you put out comes back to you, that sort of thing. And there's countless more. But in my evolution of channeling, I came to discovery, because ultimately I was trying to bring this moment of oneness, of this pure love, to people. It's like, how do I present that to you in a way that makes sense to you wherever you're at? Like that was my drive, to trying to understand this. And once I finally quit my job and focused in on this, and I started writing every day and working with my dad because he was focused on his spirituality, and drawing up diagrams and making some of my first videos. One day it dawned on me as I was going through my notes and looking at all my diagrams that every page is the same essential point. Like I'm saying the same thing every single time. I'm just pointing at it from a different direction or a different perspective. And the point that I was always been making is that right now is the point. Like that's the thing. That's what we're supposed to be doing in a sense. And like in terms of where do you get to, and when, you know, where's the destination in terms of spiritual awakening, enlightenment, and where are we trying to get to? Well, we're trying to get to right here. We're trying to get to a place where we're at is okay, feels good, feels balance, is at peace, where you can love the one you're with and the place that you're in. That's to me like the ultimate in terms of that spiritual journey. Once you can arrive here and be home where your heart is, you're there. And that's the present moment. And I know that that's been, you know, pounded on and cliched, be here now, all that stuff is, you know, rattled off. And when people hear it, they probably just dismiss it like, you know, whatever. Anyway, so I started doing this, like I can channel, and I present it as I can do channeling because that's what I'm doing. But the word channeling has been co-opted by the spiritual community. And when people hear that, they just think it means connecting to entities. Like I'm a walking Ouija board. I'm a spiritual telephone. And while that's true to some degree, it's so much more than that. And really, everyone channels. Channeling is just full immersion into the present moment. It's being in the flow. It's doing things without having to think about what you're doing, being bogged down by your mind, your worries, or your concerns about time, about your past, about all that. And it's doing what you're doing and loving it. And you can be in the flow doing all sorts of stuff. You could be in the flow playing Call of Duty, or riding a bike, or creating art, or making music. Like once you're in the flow, you're technically channeling. You're like in the channel and flowing with it. without, and you're in like this synchronous harmony with the world around you. And I know you've experienced that. Anybody has. So I reinvented it and reproduce it as slipstreaming. The word slipstreaming is a term in fluid dynamics. It has to do with basically two pieces or two points. Like we'll talk about it in racing terms. Um, Slipstreaming is when a car gets behind another car in the line, and the car in front is taking all the drag or resistance off the car behind it because it's within its vortex, and it gives it a boost of speed because it's no longer being pushed back by resistance. So it allows the car in back to get a boost of acceleration and shoot out in front. Do it in Mario Kart. It's also called drafting.
Yeah.
But it's the whole idea is holding space of no resistance, no judgment, just utter clarity. And then, it can be that channeling thing where you ask the question and whatever comes forth will come forth spontaneously. I do the channeling technique that I've learned, which is really just the culmination of my spiritual practice over a long period of time. I close my eyes so it looks kind of the same. I close my eyes just so I can see better. And you might see me shake or vibrate if I'm doing it for you. And that's just the way that my body is responding to the energy as it's coming through. But ultimately, your questions are the key. So my tagline on my website is "The key is in the question," and that also inspired. So I'm a spiritual escape artist, and that inspired my logo, which is a key and a question mark as one. The key is in the question, because that's how I found my spirituality, was by asking a lot of questions over and over, because every question has a solution connected to it.
That's your logo right there.
Yep. The key and the question. And there's the mountains. Those are the sawtooths of Idaho. Yeah, that's where I live.
Subscribed.
Nice, dude. Thank you. But so it's about your questions, and then the questions of you and what you want, what you're looking for, what your heart's desire is, how you feel now, and how to get you here into the present moment. So it's like I'm channeling now. That's what I channel. I don't channel some entity or some being that's living in some spaceship somewhere. I channel right here, right now. And the act of the slipstream is to bring you into it so that we can share this moment together, this point of power that we all have. But that's it.
Yeah, it's important to have that unifying presence, and that's where everything comes from. Because like, if you're not unified, or if you don't gather yourself in a single point, like, how are you going to expect to do something with all of your heart and with all of your intensity? Like, if you're over here and then over here, like, you're not going to be able to
Yes, exactly.
go forward and focus on something that you need to focus on. So
it's like the saying, focus on it with your undivided attention. Undivided.
Oh, yeah.
That means unified. That means unified. So if your attention is divided, it's because it's like literally being bifurcated into different dimensions of time and reality. So you're driving, but you're also thinking about your sister and a conversation you had 5 years ago, and whether or not you're waiting for a phone call. So you're like branching out your attention to all these different places outside of the present moment, and that closes off your awareness to what's going on around you, increasing the chances of an accident or something like that. But that's just an example of divided attention versus undividing attention into the now.
Yeah, and it also goes back to also one of your first experiences when you had your awakening, because like, in order to get to that state when you're zoomed out and all you see is love, you're kind of like above everything, like floating. I mean, there's some kind of maybe constructs in the mind or blockages that kind of like prevent basically the majority of the population from seeing that kind of experience or having that kind of experience, right? Like you I don't know how you describe the experience, but you said you felt love everywhere, you're above everything. I mean, if you're focused on what she just said 20 minutes ago, if you're focused on, oh my God, I gotta pay the bills, I gotta do this, I gotta like, if your mind is in this ping pong game and it's like moving around, and it's not still and it's not aware of what's above, then like, I mean, I think majority of people live in that spot. And so, I mean, are you able to also see the different, I mean, people will call it maybe the matrix in a way, but are you able to see a little bit more of the, now that you've had some of these experiences, you've done slipstreaming, you're able to see how people get locked into a certain
Oh,
mode of being and like aren't able to
absolutely.
escape from that?
Yeah, that played a really big component in getting to where I am now. Like when I was young and I had these experiences for the first time, I thought it was like my duty, like my calling, my mission on earth was to help break people out of their matrix. And so I was out there, on my soapbox or standing on the mountaintops, yelling to the world, wake up. I was one of those people doing that and trying to explain like, oh, there's just so much more, there's infinite universes going on, and it's all like overlaid over top of this right now, and that we live in mental prisons, and call that the matrix. That's what the Matrix movie's about, that's what all this is about. And I was just so excited and eager to shake the world up, and I had to learn that you can't do that, because everyone's on their own path, and I can't possibly know what another human or soul needs to know or question or face up to in order to get to their next step. I just can't know it. I could tell them all day. I could write them a book and hand it to them, like love will set you free, and they're just not going to get it. It's going to go through one ear out the other, or they're going to get some, or they're going to resent other bits because they're angry at themselves or the world, because of their situation or the situation of other people. Um, and what I had to learn was you can't help people from there. That's what why I created a platform, because I realized, oh, the people I really am helping, because I know that there's people I'm helping, and I can't absolutely know what it is I need to say, what combination of words need to hit your mind and what sequence in order for that to be the little unlocking mechanism for another person, because they have to be ready for it, and they have to be able to approach that lock to even put the key in. Um, and that means that they have to kind of be aside of that fear and whatever emotions arise. It's just a timing thing with people. So I realized what I need to do is create a platform. And when people are ready and eager and curious and seeking, they can come to me, and then it's perfect. Then it's perfect. Then we can meet in the middle. Then we meet each other halfway, and they're ready for it. And what I have to offer is exclusive and perfect for them. And I realized that I'm investing too much energy, and it's draining in trying to get other people, into this space of peace and presence, because they have reasons why they're struggling and suffering. And I, from my end, can't know those reasons. And even if I can see the traps that they're laying for themselves, there's just it's not up to me. They have to figure it out on their own, so that they have the power and clarity to not fall for those traps again and actually move on. It has to be your job to break out of your own mental prison. All I do is stand here and say, hey, it's just in the mind. You're suffering, worrying about who you are, your sense of value. That's a mental construct. You actually are the pinnacle of value. You determine value. You are the scale of all value. Your prime currency, the most valuable thing, is your time, is your attention, is your presence. And that's for everyone. And, those controllers behind the curtains, they know that too. And they want your attention. They want you staring at your phone. They want you buying the next thing and consuming, because they want what's most powerful about you. That's your attention. And so that's what meditation is about. It's about like returning your attention back to yourself, back into the well of your awareness, and cultivating that power within, cultivating that equanimity, that sovereignty of your own energy, reclaiming that energy and bringing it back. And that's the same thing as getting back into the moment, arriving right here and now. So yeah, that's the long-winded explanation of your question.
No, that's perfectly said. Yeah, because you can't wake people. I've tried it too, man. Like I've tried telling people certain things, like, hey, things are like this, blah blah blah. Like you say, oh, the Matrix does this, but people have harsh reactions. People don't want to hear it. People are like, oh, I'm
Yeah,
just doing my own thing. I don't need to hear about that right now. It's like, yeah, there's no point in wasting your energy and your attention on someone that's not going to reciprocate or is not ready to hear something that they're not ready to hear. So I think it's
yeah.
perfectly said what you said. I mean, it's like you're just being a dead horse, you're just like, wake up, but it's like they have no urge or desire
They
to
don't
even
want to
do
wake
so.
up. They're not ready yet. They're not ready yet. Yeah, it's like how angry would you be if someone was trying to wake you up and you needed your
Yeah,
sleep? I mean,
some people get mad. Yeah, shoot.
yeah.
No, but I was I mean, have you watched Inception? That's a pretty interesting dream around waking up and
Yeah.
sleep and
You say that
yeah,
just
yeah.
now, dude. I had a lucid dream last night, and like I've had lucid dreams before. I used to practice that, but this is the first one where I actually like really went flying, and that was cool. I realized I was dreaming, and I'm like, I'm gonna fly, and I just took off, and I probably held it for a good 10, 15 minutes, and I just flew over my town, and I was in like total clarity, and I knew my body was sleeping, and I knew I was in a dream, and it was like crystal clear. So it's wild that you said Inception, because that was pretty fresh in my memory. But anyway, that's another aside.
You're synced up, man. Synced up.
That's
But
what it's about. Yeah.
part of yeah, exactly. Part of also like you talked about returning your attention to yourself, like your awareness starts to open up, right? So like you bring your attention back to your body, open up your
Yes.
awareness, and
Yes.
then it's like the thoughts are like clouds in the sky, things become a little distant. It's that feeling like you described being that lucid dream where the awareness is just expanded, it's an open sky, it's clarity. And you say it lasts like 10 to 15 minutes, which is actually interesting because when we think about it, the more disciplined we are, the longer those experiences last too. And it doesn't necessarily translate into your dream experience, but it also translates into your normal experience where
It
maybe 10 to
does.
15 minutes you can hold an awareness. Maybe for 10 to 15 minutes or an hour, you can hold your awareness in a still state, and then maybe something will put you back to sleep. So
Yep.
we're always kind of
Yep.
playing with this whole world of awareness and waking up and sleeping. It's interesting to explore the ways in
So
which we're asleep and then awake. So
yeah, it's the mind. It has like a momentum. It's been running on autopilot, unconscious behavior, and so it carries a weight, and it'll grab you again, especially if you, I don't know, look at the news or look at the opinions of others. It's like now you kind of have to take your attention and put it in their box for even just a moment, just to understand what they're saying. And unbeknownst to you, you picked up a pattern or belief of somebody else and kind of believed it yourself too, just to make sense of what they're explaining, what they're going through. And we all kind of share that with each other. We share our our belief systems, our identities, how we identify, not just as an individual, but as a collective species, and what we're going through and what the world's going through and how we identify. So we have these levels of identification, and all these levels of identifications all exist within the same mental construct. So you talk about um, awareness and attention. I break down consciousness in one aspect to two distinct functions. So you have your attention, which is awareness focused to a point, and it can be only on one thing at a time. Like each word, as I say it, as you're hearing it, your attention's locked in on that, and it moves around. It keeps moving, And the act of meditation is like harnessing it or holding it still. That's focus, concentration. But then there's the opposite aspect of in function of consciousness we call awareness. Instead of focusing, that's attention being dispersed out into a field or a space. So you can be aware of unlimited amounts of things if you really think of it, or if you stop thinking about it. I mean, the distant dog barking, the traffic outside, the sound of bugs or flies or something, the air conditioning in the room, the little buzzing of your phone going off. All this stuff is happening like a symphony of little actions, and it's completely unfathomable to really take all that in. So the act of harnessing the attention and bringing it into the awareness, bringing them into each other, has this effect of bringing greater clarity to your awareness, but also expanding the focus and bandwidth of your attention so that you can be aware and higher, and concentrate with more ease all through life. So that's how I boil down meditation or other spiritual practices like energy work or playing music or sex or like whatever it is that brings you into the moment. There is a merger of these two aspects of awareness that increases the quality of your present moment.
Yeah, the quality of your attention does dictate your experience, because some people have a weaker. I mean, it's very self-evident. Like, if some people have a weaker ability to focus, right? Like, I've been in a state personally. When my focus is weak, my life is shit. Let's just be real.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
I know
if
I
your
have to.
focus
Oh
ain't
yeah.
there, if your attention ain't there, your life's gonna be
Oh yeah.
scattered. You're just gonna be shit. So,
Yeah,
I mean, when you
that's why
learn
I
to
had to
harness,
quit
like you said,
drinking.
yeah, because I mean, like, some people, I mean, it's interesting. Like, you can't make excuses with this stuff because it's like it's direct, it's real, it's there, and you just gotta harness it. No excuses, just gotta do it. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's part of learning and understanding yourself, like what you're made of and the different parts of yourself. So I think it's interesting you say that.
Well, I sometimes like when I'm talking or like I have a group or something and I'm presenting this and you say, and this is something that people understand, like deep down, like, time is the ultimate currency. It's your most valuable, precious resource is your time. Well, that might cause somebody to cringe. Like, oh, all the times I haven't paid attention or I was just completely wasting my time. But the thing to remember is now is always new. It's always a fresh, clean slate right in front of you, always right in front of you, right in front of everything. It comes before everything, it comes before all your thoughts about it. It's this fresh space that is available to everybody, and you can see it and interact with it by simply paying attention, right? Call it a currency. Pay attention, notice, listen, feel. These actions bring you back into the present and take the attention out of the mind and the story that you tell yourself, the story that you tell yourself about yourself and about the world that you live in. That's good for what it is. I mean, you can get a lot done with that, but there's no liberation in there. The liberation is getting out of there. The freedom, or like I call it, spiritual escape artist. The escape is the escape from all the doubts about yourself, all the mental anguishing about things, the constant chatter, the distractions, and a return to your present moment, who you are, how you feel, your spirit. And as you do that, you empower yourself, you liberate yourself, you come into greater spiritual agency to choose what you actually want to do. So you have more clarity over the steps, or better priority over what you do and how you operate through the day. And then you can decide in your own timing, okay, I think I'm gonna think I'm going to give up eating junk food and I'm going to start eating more healthy, or I'm going to put Instagram down and pick up a book, or whatever makes sense for you that you can do to become more conscious is what I'm talking about.
And I mean, I also like how you described earlier, talking about like, I mean, even your logo being the key, right? Like a keyhole, because like everyone, like you said, has their own like combination lock that you just need to twist things and move it, like change the numbers on the
Yeah.
combination just a little bit here, and then boom, they have that realization. For you, like, what have been some key moments when like when you're trying to get into the state of having your attention resting in awareness, right? What are some major, combination changes or major inputs that you've observed within yourself that have prevented you from opening up the lock, which is pure awareness? Like, what have been some things that you've had to work through?
Being a wallflower at a party or a dance. There was a time when I was scared to get up and just move my body. I was nervous about what people would think of me and how I would look. And when the time came where I finally let go of that and I stepped out onto the dance floor and started getting in rhythm with the music, the people around me, that was an awakening experience all by itself, because I recognized, oh, there's more going on than all of my little worries about who I am, my little image of myself. There's this pulse to existence, and where it used to be in my mind, and I would listen to music in my head, and I would see visualizations, and I could dance away with it, close my eyes, and tap my foot. I realized I could take that visualization of energy that I'm experiencing and bring it into my body and show it with my body. Like I could completely interpret what that intangible vibration was telling me and express it with my body. So that was, to answer your question, one big click moment for me that expanded my world, spiritual, universal, cosmic view of what it means to be in the moment.
Yeah. And like, what do you think for other people? What have been some surprises that brought them into that state of focused awareness? Or I'm describing it as focused awareness or just being in pure awareness, right? Like, what have been some things that you've seen in people that once that switch got flipped on, or you could say it like that, like once that thing changed, then it's like, boom, they got it. What have been some realization points?
I've seen this realization in both my mom and my father, actually. I mean, as well as many other people. For my mom, it was working the same job for, I don't know what it was, like 15 years. And she'd always been she just always worked her whole life. And she was like a sales consultant for a company out here. It's that kind of operates like a multi-level marketing. It's called Melaleuca. They sell like health products and stuff like that. But there's a lot of social and cultural oppression in the office place. One thing is living in where I live is very LDS. It's probably the most LDS little pocket of the world. It's just north of Salt Lake City. So there's a lot of immigration from down south in this area of eastern Idaho. And it really weaves itself into the society and the way that people treat each other, regardless of whether or not you're in the religion or you're out of it. When you have a prominent, dominating religious structure like that, it appears in the office space. And my mom hadn't realized that by being in that same job for so long, that it was creating a serious detriment to her health. She had just numerous health problems arise from breast cancer to diabetes to kidney stones all the time, to not being able to process the fats in her bodies, to getting on a very strict diet, having to take tons of supplements and drugs. It was hell. I mean, she was going through hell in the terms of physical health. And one day she made a light joke about one of her superiors over a call with one of her clients, just a totally lighthearted joke. And they happened to be listening in on it, and they fired her for it. And it happened to be one of the greatest things that could have possibly happened to her. She was still 2-3 years out from retirement. And she decided right at that point, I'm just going to retire right now. And it was a matter of literally a few weeks. And her pancreas started producing insulin again. Her body started processing fats again. She could have butter again. She could eat sugar again. She could eat the things that she loved again. She was able to cut out all this extra supplements and all the stuff she was taking. She was happy. She was vibrant. She took up a yoga class, and she got incredibly creative and got into doing what she loves again. Instead of feeling like this outcast in this society, in this box, and trying to like fit in around cylinder, trying to fit into a square box. It just did. And she tried that for so long because she had to make money and all those reasons. But once she finally let that go, she became herself again. And I swear 10, 15 years dropped off her face. Like, she became younger. It was incredible to witness that. And I saw the same thing in my dad. My dad had incredibly stressful jobs his entire life. Now they're both separate, by the way. They separated when I was like 1 or 2. But in his own way, he retired, and he was a career scientist, worked for the government most of his life in nuclear science, and is a physicist. And he was very technical, laborious, red tape, getting through lots of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of having to fit in that box in a major way every day. And it starves the spirit in a big way. And it lent to his health decline in a big way, where he had to get spinal surgery, now coming on 3 times, where he had to get his spine fused to a rod, like 5 or 6 vertebrae just harnessed in place. And so for him, it was crisis, like a serious health crisis. He didn't want to be crippled. He didn't want to be, he's an active person. He works in a garden. He loves backpacking. That's why we live in the mountains. So it was a calling to him to find his spirituality. And I have witnessed in him, as he opens himself up to more and more of his own spirituality, coming back into the present, coming to it with grace and love, and setting down all of his grudges and forgiving those people that wronged him and all that, and letting all that go. He no longer suffers like he used to about politics, about the neighbor dog barking all the time, like all these things that used to grind him into this furious individual who was always stressed. And I see him happy and calm way more of the time. I'm not saying that it doesn't spark up again, and sometimes his back really hurts, and the dog woke him up in the middle of the night. But he now has all these tricks that he's developed. He has all these tricks up his sleeve to come back into presence and let it go. And I could just sit back and watch. Like, it's beautiful to witness. So there's some examples for you.
Those are beautiful examples, because those are game changing. That's very life changing.
It's like spirituality has a real impact on your daily life, and it doesn't have to be some fantasy. It can literally be just making your life easier in the most mundane way, to where you can actually enjoy your breakfast, and really, really drink in the coffee and not be absorbed by, who's going to be the next president, or who's doing who, or a school shooting or something. And it's not that isn't important to some degree, but it doesn't have to live up here. It doesn't have to tear you down and make you feel guilty and accountable and all that stuff. Like, you can live your life and be the best that you can. And that's the best that you can do for everyone else. that's doing your part to saving the world, as far as I'm concerned. Just like you, Ezekiel, putting up this channel, man. That, as far as I'm concerned, this is a sign of humanity's awakening. The fact that there's a guy that I can reach out to, have a conversation with about spirituality. I believe that you and I are converging at this point in time and creating something. We're creating something that is a catalyst for others to awaken to. And again, we can't know what another person needs to hear or see or think about to be able to move on to that next step. But we're doing our part by talking about it and putting it out on the table. Like, let's talk about this. This is an important thing. This is an important thing to us. We need to bring more and more reality and attention to this, that the human spirit is alive within us, and it cannot be fit into a box. It's bigger than you, me, our bodies, this world. It's so much more than that.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned those stories with your, with your mom and dad and stuff. Like, a lot of people are in those situations, to be honest. And it's a real thing where people have to get jobs. They have to do these things in order to provide for their family. And then at that point, that's when you get wrapped up in the whole, you say rat race, or, like the whole, everyone just gets in the circle of go to work, sleep, wake up the next day, go to work. It just becomes this constant cycle of just, I don't like my life, just gotta go to work, wake up. I mean, it's like you gotta get to a certain point and realize too, like you gotta do more with your life than just being a slave and being a rat in a wheel. It's like there's things to you that's beautiful, and there's things to you have gifts. And what will happen is after years of chronically, like you said, your mom was working 15 years at a job, and all of a sudden in an instant everything was better when she left. It's like sometimes people are in chronic situations and that are bad for them, and all they need to do is take a leap of faith.
Yep.
Calculated. I would say calculated. I would add that to leap of faith, but it's like you have to be intentional. Like, you're gonna take a leap of faith? Be intentional about that.
It takes
Like,
courage.
yeah, like this podcast is a leap of faith. Like,
Right
I mean,
on.
even before I started this podcast, I was just doing solo talks where no one listened. I was like, I mean, I didn't care. I just needed to get out some of my ideas and thoughts because I knew that I was getting a lot of downloads. So I was like, let me speak on some stuff. But later on, I was like, I was thinking about what was best, and it was like, nah, podcast. For some reason, it was that, and I mean, and then I'm making this. So, and I'll just say, it's opened up many doors. That, I mean, man, it's opened up many doors,
Cool.
and it just came to me out of nowhere. And that all happens when you follow your heart. So we can go into
Yes.
that too, because I think that's a key component of, like, for example, in these situations. I mean, it seems like your mom kind of forcibly got into the situation where they fired her, and then now she's having the time of her life for retirement. But some people, they don't necessarily get those things. They're in between and they don't know what to do. And I think this is where the heart comes in, when paying attention to your heart and what it's saying. So maybe do you want to talk about following your heart's
I'd love
internal
to.
guidance?
I'm so glad that that's the direction you took, because that's the direction I would have taken myself. So as a way to express this, I make a distinction yet again. I like to, because I talk about like having this experience of oneness and everything. And I know that could be a rather abstract idea for a lot of people to consider. But you think of it like this: you bring everything into one, as though everything is the same thing. In order for that to be true, that means in order to have an experience of being different people with different lives, and all this stuff, all this time, and all this stuff, you got to first split it into two. And then we call that duality. And we see that the yin and yang, the ebb and flow, the in and out, the above and the below. There is a clear difference between these two polar opposites, and they're married. There's a relationship between these two opposites. And the way that I describe it in terms of our consciousness and our experiential reality, or our intelligence, is our heart, mind, and our head, mind, and our heart. That the heart is intelligent. That in truth, the heart is who you really are. This is the power behind the machine. This is the power behind the computer. This is just an image processing unit, a CPU. That's all this is. This isn't who you really are. This is just creating an image of you and helping you along with the language to understand it and survive it and figure it out. This is who you really are. And it has a distinct expression where this doesn't think, this doesn't process images for you. It's in a feeling, it's in sensing. It's just here right now. It's just beating. And again, doing things like breathing, coming back into the moment. Center your attention. It brings it out of the head and brings it back to center automatically. Just the in and out, just that rhythm. Bringing everything down to the simplicity of two helps you to find your one. And your heart yearns for things. It wants to be satiated all the time, and that's okay. I think a lot of people get into the hardcore, traditional, conventional Eastern philosophies of how to approach spirituality, like Buddhism and non-duality, and they don't realize it. But in some cases, that's actually another trap, because it's very mental, and it treats the whole experience as it's all in the mind, and it doesn't necessarily give validity or meaning to one's heart. So while there may be some that are able to liberate their mind and sit in Buddha state in a monastery or on a mountain somewhere, they can't do much from there. All they can do is sit there, and they can have a personal, brilliant spiritual experience on their own. But then how do you bring that back to the real world? Ram Dass has a quote that I love. If you think you're enlightened, spend a week with your parents. I think that's brilliant, because it's an ongoing process. And even if you can set down the ego, you have to pick it back up again. You have to pick up again, because that's how you operate. That's how you share and connect with others. Your identity is important to that effect. Your ego has meaning. It has a function, it has a utility. So those more traditional aspects of spirituality kind of vilify the ego unwittingly, because it's always what's blocking you or limiting you. But if you bring it into the idea of the distinction between the heart and the mind, it's just a matter of priority. If your mind is just simply trying to protect your heart, because your heart is very precious. It's incredibly precious to you. And it has been ever since you were born. And deep down, at the core of that is love, just love. And, that's why we're so conditional with our love, because it's a scary world out there. There are hellscapes out there, man. People will take your heart and stomp on it and take you for everything you're worth. That can happen. And so undoubtedly, yeah, you're going to be you're going to put some walls up, and you're going to protect yourself. And that's, absolutely. But those same protections and walls that you put up when you're dealing with trauma as a little kid, that help protect you, help you cope with the moment so you can move on with your life. Those same guard dogs that you put on those walls to protect your heart when you're young can later become your demons. And they're actually keeping your heart from growing and expanding out to the world, because you're locked in fear. But fear was just put there to protect you. But as fear kept growing, and as you kept nourishing it with your attention and your thoughts, that fear grew and grew and grew, and you carry it with you every day. So you don't want to get out of that job because you're afraid that you're going to be broke, or that you're not going to have a safety net, or that you can't do it. So all that fear actually degraded your sense of value and what you're actually honestly capable of. So what I would say is to realize that fear, while there are true threats out there, is internally not real. It's just a mental apparition designed to protect your heart from getting hurt, but it also keeps it back from growing and expanding and getting what it wants. That everybody's heart has something that it's trying to get to, that this is a little compass and it's guiding you. And we call that our intuition, that it really has a trajectory. And if you can learn to quiet the mind through these disciplines of meditation and getting to the present moment, that you can then ask your heart, what do you want? What would make you feel better? What would bring you into peace? What do you need to know to be able to set that down? Whatever it is, it will tell you. And it's always the first thing. It's always instant. It's always fine because it lives in the moment. It lives outside of time. The mind operates in time. The mind cuts everything up and creates reference points and compares and contrasts the world, because that's literally in the energy that it's operating in. It's working in light. But the heart operates in an infinite field of feeling, of almost like a void. It's open. So like if you look at the Greek word for infinite love or divine love, it's agape. And in English, it just means open. It's an ocean. It's an infinite ocean if you let it. But the reason that we suffer is because that ocean is trying to pipe itself through all the industrial pipe work that has been laid out by your society and put onto your little head cap that we call an ego, we call a mind. But that's not really you. You're the ocean.
Yeah. And like when there's some certain signs that happen when you drop into the heart that I've personally experienced and that many other people can also experience. But some of it involves dreams or visionary experiences of falling into a void, like you say, or chasm. And usually when you fall like that, right, your mind drops into the heart. It's a falling action. You're up
Quite
here,
literally.
and
Yes.
to here, you're literally dropping and falling. And
And you
actually, I
get
mean, I
that
use that
sense of
term
like,
before.
like it's kind of, it's
Exactly.
nerve
Yeah.
wracking,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. It is nerve wracking. Terror sometimes too. Or
but
just
that's
depending on
like
how
you
you
said, it's
handle
a
it.
leap of faith, right? So faith comes from the heart. Faith is trust. And you talk about taking a leap of faith, making your podcast, stepping out of the old job. That's that leap of faith. And that faith is giving your heart power. It's granting your heart access to a new possibility by facing your fear and jumping headlong into it. And that's the chasm. Like, let's see, it's the great unknown. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not sure what's going to happen next. But one thing I tend to find, and what's reported by everybody that I've ever listened to, all the wise teachers and books that I've ever read, is once you face your fear, you go through it, you can look back and see, what was I afraid of? That was nothing. That was nothing. And they're living their best lives because they just finally did it. And that's really like that's the fast route. That's the fast route to freedom, is just jump into your fear. Just face it. Just face it head on. And once you do, and you finally get through the nervous, intense feeling that it brings, you're able to look back with hindsight and see that it was all made up. That really your mind was making a mountain out of a molehill, and all you had to do is take one step, and you're fine. And you're fine. You got this far. You can do it. You can do it. Others have. That means you can too.
Yeah, definitely. So, final question. Give me a second. I'm about to hit you with one. Let's see. Final question. What is the one thing that is on your heart right now that you think people need to hear?
that you do have a choice. You might think that you don't have a choice, but if you really believe that, then you're doing your heart a disservice, because that which really chooses is the heart. The heart decides what it wants. And it might seem that you're stuck in a path, or you have to do things a certain way because this is the way it is. And you might think that that's some kind of empirical truth that everyone must abide by. But I'm telling you, that's just what you're telling yourself. And what you're telling yourself will change. It can change as soon as you decide that's not for me. And when you stand up for what you want, what your dream is, and you take a step towards it, you are going to get closer to that, and you will bring that to you. That isn't some distant, faraway fantasy that you can never reach. That dream lives in your heart, and it wants to grow. It wants to be known, and your heart wants it most of all. So just remember that your mind might tell you a lot. The way that you identify your life and the world around you, that's all subject to change. But you still got your heart here. Your heart's still going to keep beating. And who knows what's going to happen after you pass away. But you don't want to be, nobody wants to be at that point wondering what they could have done, wondering about the wasted time that they had. Because the moment that lies right in front of you, right here, right under your nose, right before your very eyes, is the present. The present, when this now is always new. It's clean, it's fresh, and it's a fertile soil, ready to be whatever you want it to be. If you want to replay the story that everyone's been telling you, that you hear all the time on the news, and that your parents told you, and that your boss told you, then do it. You have that choice, and it really is a choice. Just remember, the next now is coming. The next now is coming. Now is always next. Now is always next. And you're in charge of how you treat it and how you speak of it, not just yourself, but of right now. So, how's that?
Straight from the heart. I can tell. I can tell when someone's coming straight from the heart. So beautiful. And where
Thank
can
you.
people find you? Where can people find you?
So I've got my YouTube channel. You just type Spiritual Escape Artist and you'll go there. You'll have there, I'm sure my links will be in this video, spiritualescapeartist.com. And then that website has all my links. You can reach out to me. You want to talk to me directly, I'm open ears. I got my number on there, my email, my socials, whatever. Just talk to me. Like I'm happy to talk, because if you're seeking, that means there's something for you. There's a solution to find. If your heart is going after that, and you want your heart, if you want your heart to be free and happy and liberated, and you're ready for that, then you will get that. You will find that. Just stay true to your heart, and you will find all of the glory that this world has to give, all the abundance, all the freedom. It's there waiting for you. You just got to take a step in the direction that your heart wants to take, and it will take you there. It will.
There you go. So go check out Jeff's channel. Go check out his links. I'm leaving in the description down below. And make sure you guys escape. Make sure you guys escape. So
Thank you. Seriously.
thank you for coming on, man. Thank you.